As a nice surprise for the end of 2017, the ARMS team has released their fifth and possibly final character, Dr. Coyle. Now, there isn't any explicit language yet saying that this is actually going to be the last character we get, but it's been widely speculated since the release of the Japanese patch notes, or at least the translation of those patch notes, saying that this is going to be the last major update for the game. Now, I don't think that they're going to be releasing characters at the rate that they did last year, like once every month, basically, but I definitely don't believe yet that we're not getting any new characters. Maybe we'll get one or two throughout the year, but they haven't outright said that we aren't getting any more characters, so all hope is not lost. But either way, the ARMS team has done a great job of keeping up this theme of different playing characters that are different to play from the last, and Dr. Coyle is definitely one of the most unique characters to be released yet. Also, before this video starts, I'd just like to announce that I'll actually be starting off my regular streaming schedule this coming week. My first official ARMS stream will be here on my YouTube channel this coming Thursday at 7 PM PST. I do want eventually to have a more structured stream, but for this first one, we'll probably just do maybe a few party mode rounds, followed by some arena matches with whoever wants to battle. I usually have a lot of fun doing these things just with people on my Discord without the stream going on, and hopefully a couple of those guys will show up. We've got a lot of people with all different skill levels, so if you're available then, please show up and come practice with us for a couple hours on stream. Now here is my overview of the Nefarious Dr. Coyle. Dr. Coyle is the lead scientist at ARMS Labs, which means she's responsible for the creation of Helix, Springtron, and even the insidious headlock. From the design of the headlock machine, Coyle was inspired to make her first set of arms called the Lockjaws. These are the newest heavy arms and come with the explosive attribute, but with a little twist. Upon sending out a charged punch, the Lockjaw will open up and shoot out a ball of evil energy directly towards your opponent. You don't have much control over the ball after you actually punch it, but it will do 100 damage on impact and get there pretty quick, then do an additional 50 explosive damage as well. The attack doesn't stop there though, as the Lockjaw itself will actually fully extend at a slower rate, which can tack on an additional 20 damage if you land that full combo. That's 170 damage total, which makes this one of the deadliest arms in the game. The coolest thing about this arm is that you actually have 3 chances to hit your opponent with one single punch. Even if you miss the initial hit and explosion, you can still control the Lockjaw itself and hit your opponent for a good 110 base damage. Although it looks different from its peers, these arms can still compete with other heavies as well, which makes them a great counter for the hammers, megas, and blorbs. The Parabolas are a new type of Brella arms. These do 90 base damage, and like the Parasols, do the same amount of damage charged or uncharged. Instead of the wind attribute though, these carry electricity. Now, these are a new Brella type arm, but they do feel quite different from the Parasol and the way that the arms extend. While the Parasol opens up pretty much immediately and travels in a straight, very steady path, the Parabola will stay closed for a couple of seconds, which helps it extend just slightly faster initially, and then open up as it nears your opponent and actually home in on them as well. I would almost compare this to something like the Guardian, except instead of starting slow near you and then speeding up, it starts very speedy initially and then slows down and homes in as it reaches your opponent. The hitbox is just about the same as the Parasols, which makes for a great shield against most light to medium arms, and even though it doesn't open up right away, this can still tear through those multi-shots just as easily as the Parasol does. It doesn't feel as quick or as much like a shield as the Parasol does at first, but that slow, creeping homing attack towards the end can really block punches very well, especially those explosive arms that can explode prematurely. The last pair of arms, and I think probably the crowd favorite out of all of Coyle's arms, are the Birch X. These are similar to Lola's Fun Chucks, except this time with the freezing attribute. The Birch X will do 80 damage uncharged and 90 damage charged. Like the Fun Chuck, these arms have two different modes of attack depending on whether you're grounded or jumping in the air. Both Chucks share the same two forms of attacks, but are opposite in the way that they are performed. Upon punching when grounded with the Fun Chuck, you'll send out a quicker, vertical spinning punch that functions similar to the path of something like the Homie. When grounded using the Birch X, however, you'll perform a slower punch with a wider hitbox that functions more like the Parasol. Both of these punches are very viable, and the Birch X's wide hitbox can be very useful for countering light and medium arms, as it can cover a wide range and knock out most anything lighter than a glove. Depending on which form of attack you prefer from these, using the Chucks on Dr. Coyle can be a huge blessing or a huge disadvantage. Coyle has many different quirks and abilities, but her main gimmick is that she's always hovering above the ground, which means that she's always going to be considered grounded. This means that when you use something like the Birch X, you'll be forced to use only its grounded attack, and then vice versa for the Fun Chuck. The other big gimmick the Doctor has is that she can't jump. Instead, you can just hold down the jump button for as long as you want to hover in the air at about the height that a normal character can jump. Because Coyle is always considered to be grounded, this means that you can do everything a normal character can do on the ground while hovering in the air. You can block, dash, and even fully charge dash all the way while staying above your opponent's head. The main downside to being permanently grounded, though, is that you're pretty much always susceptible to movement debilitating attributes. When you get electrocuted in the air, instead of taking the damage and getting knocked back, you'll be taking the damage, then getting disabled in the air, leaving you open for a whole nother attack or even a grab. This can occasionally work in your favor, but in high-level play, it generally just leaves you very vulnerable, so just be aware of that if you're floating around 24/7. The next big ability here is her Invisibility, which can be triggered in a couple of different ways. The first is just being knocked down. She'll turn invisible on the ground and then stay so for a second or two while you roll away and get up, which gives you a good defense against wake-up attacks. This can also be triggered by holding her block long enough without being attacked. It takes about 3 seconds to activate and will stay active for about the same duration. One tip I've seen floating around Reddit and Twitter is that you can actually still see Dr. Coyle's shadow while she's invisible, so keep that in mind when playing as or against her. Dr. Coyle's last and, in my opinion, coolest ability is her full charge attack. Like Min Min and Max Brass, Dr. Coyle has a special ability if you're able to fully charge up her arms with a charged dash. Instead of a large permacharged arm like Min Min's though, Dr. Coyle will actually grow a third charged arm on either of her shoulders, whichever one it is random. This might sound overpowered, and it sort of is, but it does take a good amount of time to charge these up, and also only gives you a split second to release that third arm before it disappears, which means you're going to have to be very precise about your timing of both the charge and the punch. The third arm mechanic really functions differently with every different arm, and I'm still trying out all of the crazy combos you can use. Using a horizontal multi-shot has definitely been one of my favorite things to do with that, as you can cover a ridiculously wide range if you time your punches right. Coyle's lockjaw arms also play very well into that third arm ability, as they can give you 6 whole chances to hit your opponent with one single punch, which sounds crazy, but it's true. And like I have said about most powerful abilities like Springtron's EMP or anything like that, it's important not to spam these overpowered abilities, as it can leave you very vulnerable and make your movements very predictable. Even if she is the last character of this first game, I think that the ARMS team has done a phenomenal job of rounding out this roster. With each new character, they push the boundaries even more so that every single fighter feels vastly different from the last. I think that Coyle is probably going to join Misongo and the characters with the highest skill cap, just because she's got a lot of abilities and she might be sort of difficult to get into at first, but she's really going to be one of the deadliest fighters for players who dedicate themselves to learning the ins and outs of all of those unique abilities. I know that a lot of people have been playing Coyle already in the last few weeks, so if you've got any tips for improving your skills on the character, please let everyone know down in the comments. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe to my channel for the latest Switch content available. This is Max from Max Culture, and thank you so much for watching.